Welcome to the Connected Spirit Podcast, a space where the mystical and the human experience merge, where we explore what it really means to walk a spirit-led path. I'm Courtney Dawson, an ethical medium and mentor, and for as long as I can remember, I have felt the presence of the spirit world. But my journey hasn't been simple. It's been one of self-discovery, healing from religious and emotional trauma, navigating fear, judgment, and the loneliness that comes with embracing something the world doesn't always understand. This podcast is here to take what was once considered woo and bring it into the real lived experience of being human. Because mediumship isn't just something we do, it's who we are. Here we dive into the conversations no one else is having, breaking down misconceptions, exploring the unseen, and normalizing the journey of deep connection. We'll talk about the beauty and the struggle of being a medium. We'll laugh, we'll reflect, we'll go deep. And most importantly, we'll remember who we are, why we're here, and how spirit moves through us all. So if you've ever felt something more, if you've ever questioned the unseen, or if you're simply ready to embrace the fullness of your spiritual path, you're in the right place. Hello, beautiful soul. Welcome to the Connected Spirit Podcast. I am excited to introduce my next guest to you. You have probably seen her on TikTok, Instagram, and are familiar with her work. Today, we are honored to have Erica Baretto on the show. She is a retired New York City law enforcement officer, psychic medium, intuitive teacher, and founder of Awakened Insights LLC. With extraordinary spiritual experiences, she helps others connect to spirit and trust their intuition. Erica has built a loyal audience of over 313,400 followers across social media through her teachings and readings. Erica, it's so good to have you on the show.
Thanks for having me. I'm so excited to be here today with you.
I'm really excited to get to know you as the human, but also as a spiritual practitioner. I'm wondering if you could tell us a little bit about those early beginnings of your spiritual development. Some people say, I've been aware of spirit my whole life. Some people are like, I didn't have any kind of awareness of spirit until this occurrence or major event happened in their life. What was that like for you?
Well, for me, I want to say that it was pretty much since the beginning. Since the beginning, there were signs, right? There's always signs. And when I was about, I want to say maybe 2, 3 years old, my mom, my sister, my siblings, they started to notice me looking around and talking to people that weren't there. So I've engaged with imaginary friends since younger. I grew up with that connection of always feeling like there's somebody here. And I would have these conversations like, I feel you and I see you, but I don't know exactly who you are. And of course, life's, right? So we go through things, we kind of put it in the back. We don't think about it so much until something happens in our lives where it wakes up that calling that I feel like a lot of us just can't dismiss. For me, that was when I was working in law enforcement, and there was a shift for me that happened after I had my second child. Now, every single time I did have a child, I do have two, something else kind of woke up, right? My first son, it was curiosity of trying to figure out that there was something more. Now, I dived into many different areas of religion and just different aspects of trying to understand what else is there. So the path led me to being a psychic medium eventually. That's where we're at. And I'm just so excited about it, and it lights me up inside. And I'm always happy to share those parts of me with people because they're always like, how did you get here? Right? It's always something so curious to try to figure out.
It's like we hear of people talking to spirits or so-called dead people having some sort of paranormal experiences and phenomena. And people are like, that's only stuff that happens on TV, but you're a real life person.
Yeah.
How does that fit into this physical world? It's almost like spiritual experiences are at arm's length. It's not reality, but for people like you, it
Mhm.
is. It's your lived experiences. Have you always had support from your family from a young age, even to now in the work that you're doing?
Well, I want to say that I grew up I'm Hispanic, so I grew up in a way of religious and also that little witchy aspect. It kind of blends together the way I've been brought up. There's always been this fear-based narrative of don't do this and don't do that. But I just always felt like something was very different. I just couldn't connect with what they were saying. So, yes, I did have the support. Was it entirely surrounded around the work that I do now? not really, because it's still a little bit scary for them because they just didn't understand it, being that they believe in the concept of the dark and the light, and the dark overpowering the light. So it was a little bit difficult for them to really understand. But once I started to do the work and I started to really try to get them to understand the spirit world and get them to understand that it's not like that. And that's just based on the experiences that I've had. And I've learned it to be a little bit different, what somebody would consider that dark. And I always talk about that being our humanness and the things that we experience as far as our emotions and the things that we have been through. So that is where I connected that. But the support, yes, now 100%. My husband's like my biggest supporter. My children, very curious. They always support me. My mom, everybody's pretty much on the same page here. So yeah, they do support me now.
And it's really helpful to have that support because there are times where you're unfolding these abilities, really leaning into them, maybe taking classes, reading books, and sometimes it can feel really isolating. It can feel really lonely. What was it like for you in those early moments of stepping into these abilities? How did you embark on that journey?
It was a very dark journey for me.
Okay.
It was not easy. It was very emotional because at the beginning of my journey, I really thought I was going crazy. And I didn't understand what was happening. I was dealing with a lot of childhood things that started coming up for me. So it all started with the healing, trying to figure it out. Fear of death. There was just so many things that were just being poured on top of me at one time. And on top of me dealing with health issues, trying to understand what is this purpose? Why am I going through this? And understanding that this one thing I thought, which was my career forever, I was pulling away from it. That was my life. That was everything for me. And I just didn't feel like it was in alignment. So it literally felt like my entire world was crashing down on me. And it was not all love and light at that moment. It was very dark for me. I found my light through that darkness, and it really helped me to understand a lot about myself, but also about others. So I try to encourage people that are going through it to understand that we need that aspect of who we are, to understand how we weave that together with our light so that we can become whole, right? So it was not easy transition for me, and I feel like we all go through it. Would you
Yep.
say we all go through that up and down? It just makes us better mediums. That's what I think.
Well, yeah, the lived experiences are then reference point that the spirit world can then utilize to help you, to help them bring through that evidence and the communication. It was dark for you. What were some of the things that were coming up? Because those that are listening to this episode at whatever time are going to be like, holy shit, she's talking my language. By sharing that, maybe somebody's going to be feeling really seen and heard and be like, she got through it.
I want to say that I have been somebody who, before all of this, has have always struggled with depression,
Mhm.
anxiety, but my depressive thoughts would have me in a place of not wanting to be here. When I found spirit, I found there is more. I am more here as far as being that channel, being that representative for them to help others. And a lot of the stuff that was coming up for me, which I feel is a constant thing. And I think there needs to be this reminder to people that your vulnerabilities and your pain is actually your strength, and that is your power, right? That is your
Yeah.
power. And I think that a lot of people don't understand that, and they take that as a moment of feeling weak. There is no weakness there. When you figure that out, life gets so much easier. I spent so much time trying to figure out who I am in solitude. I was at home with nobody. My family was here, but they knew I was going through something, so they let me go through it. I did have an amazing therapist. I'm a very big advocate for
Yeah.
mental health. If you have to take medications, you do what you have to do because it literally saved my life. I was speaking to a therapist for a very long time, and he actually became my spiritual advisor. There were so many different connections there that I feel like the spirit world put in alignment for us. A lot of my issues, believe it or not, are like dad issues because my dad left when I was younger, really triggered that abandonment wound, the neglect wound, the worthy wound. growing up in poverty, the lack wound. There were so many different things that was coming up for me, and I just didn't understand it because it was all happening at once. But my therapist, his name was Michael, which is my dad's name, and they both share the same birthday. So I was just like, this can't be a coincidence. What is going on? I don't understand it, but I'm here for it. And he was the one that really worked me through the pain. He really helped me identify with the inner child, understanding that dynamic. It was a lot for me to deal with, but he walked me through it. Spirit world saved me from not having those thoughts of being on the other side, but staying here because I'm worth more for others to help them navigate that side. And that's why I can really empathize with people and have a lot of compassion when it comes to this work. And that's why it's so sacred, right? Lots of healing. And yeah, that was just really big part of that, which is why I do what I do now.
Thank you so much for sharing so transparently what you're talking about. I know there's a lot of people that have experienced anxiety and depression, including myself, have taken antidepressants to get through those times. I don't have any shame about it. Anybody who's listened to this podcast knows I love my therapist. We need those resources. And those of us that are sensitive to the spirit, sensitive to energies, we can feel things so much more deeply. And a lot of it can be because of the pain that we've experienced. And we don't need to have shame around that. And having conversations like this start normalizing these conversations and letting people know you can be in those dark moments, but there is a power within you, and there's this external power, source, the spirit that can help you through that. That is incredibly powerful, Erica.
Yes.
What was that shift that you were experiencing in your law enforcement career where you're like, this isn't aligned for me anymore? Like there was something that got you into that work, but you're like, no, there's something else. Can you take us through that? Because that's for a lot of people, when I think of law enforcement, these are people that are there and they retire in it. Like that's it. And for
Yeah.
you, your story was a little bit different. If you could just maybe walk us through that.
Yeah, sure. So when I first started that job, I did it because I just knew that there was something about the work that was very like being a helper in some way, being of community service. At the same time, my dad was also law enforcement. So he kind of worked me in there. And I was like, you know what? That's not a bad idea. I'm going to do it. I went to school to be a forensic psychologist and I wanted to be a detective in the NYPD. I had a choice of being with the NYPD or going over to New York City Department of Corrections. It was always my dream to be a police officer, but I ended up going into New York City Department of Corrections because my dad said, you know who your enemy is in the jail, but you won't know him on the outside. You'll always have a target on your back, so it's better for you to be on the inside. But led me in that path. I ended up becoming a captain later on, years before I ended up retiring. But there was a really big shift for me when it came to there was just this softness after I had my son. And I feel like every time I had a child, there was just a level of opening up, of understanding life a little bit better. They were a very big part of my awakening. But with my second child, I went back in and the energy just didn't align with me. I didn't like to feel the pain of the inmates. I didn't like to feel, I can feel the animosity with my coworkers. I can feel it was just a lot and too much on top of me dealing with all my other stuff. And I just kept saying, I don't want to be here no more. I can't be here anymore. And then I started to get weird feelings. I would feel dizzy. And I was just like, something's going on. I can't figure it out. I always say that sometimes things happen to us and it's like a blessing in disguise. And for me, it was actually getting sick, which was getting diagnosed with a brain tumor, which eventually had to get removed. And that is what led me to retiring fully from that job. It was a blessing in disguise, but the entire concept, the energy, the overall feeling of the pain and just not feeling in alignment. Like I felt very disturbed. My energy was very off. And it was very sad for me to the point where I just wouldn't show up to work. And that's something you don't do because that's like an AWOL. And it was just a lot. And I think my supervisors were like, there's something going on with her. And I just really detached from everybody, everything. I didn't want to be bothered. And I knew it was there's something there, but I knew that I had to leave regardless of my health or just something that I had to do on my own. But it just so happened that the universe lined it up in a way where I was able to retire and still get the benefits of a retirement officer as somebody who would have stayed for the full amount of time. The energy there was just very off. It's very dark. I have people in there who are experiencing some things, but it was no easy transition for me either, but I know it needed to be done.
When you made that leap of faith and trust into taking that next step, really kind of into the unknown, where did that take you? Because you've had this awareness of spirit, you're now no longer in this full-time job. How did your work with spirit really come together and become what it is today?
That's really interesting. I've never been asked that question. And I think there was a moment in time where the lines of me going through my depression and just really trying to figure out life and my purpose and then finding spirit all came when those lines kind of blurred together of me not victimizing,
Mm.
taking responsibility for my own pain and stop blaming dad and mom and why did this have to happen to me, and just understanding that whole concept of I'm in charge of me, I'm in charge of my feelings, I'm in charge of what it is that I'm feeling inside. They are not responsible. They have their own lives, right? We're all living the same life, just once here in these bodies. So I think with me, it came down to that not victimizing, understanding that there's more. So it all started with this healing aspect. And then the fear of death, because I was always so very sick and having to have brain surgery. There was a very big chance that something could have happened to me. So I needed to know, well, what happens after this? There has to be something more. And it led me down the rabbit hole of mediumship and NDEs. And I was just like, wow, there's got to be something to this. And coming from a family of witchiness, my grandmother was a palm reader, psychic, and a medium. I never really thought that could be me too. Like I could have these abilities, and it just woke something up with dreams. Dreams were my very first indicator of feeling spirit and understanding this whole concept of meeting spirit guides and just understanding energies and knowing that, oh, I was thinking about a song, but hey, that song really was something I haven't heard in a long time. That's actually a message from spirit. And that's how it started for me with my clairaudience. It kind of flowed from one thing to another. It was a beautiful awakening, even though there was a lot of pain involved, but it was a beautiful transition into understanding my mediumship.
That's incredibly powerful because people think, oh, well, I'm just going to sit in a circle, bang out a message, poof, done. And it's like exactly what you're describing is the same things that I teach inside my school. You can learn the mechanics of mediumship, but what really brings your abilities to life, so to speak, is having those human experiences, but also doing that deep inner healing, having that awareness of self, letting go of the inner wounds, because we all have them. Whether you think you do or not, we all have shit we have to heal.
Hmm.
And we've had those pains, and that allows us to be that clear channel for the presence of the spirit. So you were already doing all of that stuff, honey, before you even got into really, this is it, this is the calling. So you're like ahead of the game.
Little did we know, right? I feel so deeply. I wonder why. Like, why do I have to feel so much? It can be quite painful, right? Sometimes I can't even put it into words, but I know I have to feel it. I know I have to go through it. I know I have to cry and, whatever I do, right? Because I think we all have different ways of kind of getting that out. It is a journey. And I think people need to understand that and not shame themselves for it, but give themselves grace and just be so
Mhm.
proud that they're able to express themselves in such a way where they can really hug that little inner child and let them know they're going to be okay, right? So it is, yeah, there's that personal development, which is a major factor in your mediumship. And I think that's something that I really push too when I talk in my videos and just overall mediumship development.
When did that transition come in your career where you're like, I need to take what I've learned and start sharing that through your teaching offers?
So I felt that there was this sense, my intuition has always been very on point, right? For me, when I started my mediumship development, I've always realized that my intuition was always just always there. And I wanted to push that out first as a foundation of people understanding that level of themselves before they stepped into that level of mediumship, because you have to understand yourself first, right? So that's why I've always pushed intuition, understanding the clairs, understanding yourself. A lot of the work that I experienced was very intense, and my radar for picking up on things and knowing I've never been wrong about whether it be people, things happening, and just feeling that energy out. And I feel like even sometimes being a spiritual person and wanting to be kind and wanting to see people on a different level, not being in a fight or flight mode, for me, I have really misjudged or kind of misinterpreted things because of that.
I
But
have a personal experience I'm thinking of right now.
we want to be kind, but sometimes we also need to use our discernment, right? And that was something very big for me when it came to this work and deepening my mediumship and just understanding spirit on such a level. Now I try to help people understand that discernment, those feelings, that energy, and bringing what I learned from work into the spiritual world, because you need big time discernment when it comes to whether it be meeting people or even collaborations, right? It's just an
Yeah.
energy exchange. So we need to understand what we feel, we need to trust it. So I'm always pushing that out as far as trying to get people to understand their energy first, and then let's move into the spirit world. Let's understand spirit. Let's understand how they connect, because now you understand yourself. So now we can bring those two worlds together. So that's kind of how I work that, as far as how I teach and just how I try to blend those two worlds.
And it's a really great foundation. Our philosophies, this is why I love talking with other practitioners. Our philosophies are right on point because we can teach people how to meditate and connect to the spirit, but if they don't have awareness of self and understand the energy of people that still have bodies or places or objects or locations, it creates this gap in their understanding of, oh, is this me? Is this my imagination? Could this be spirit? But you're teaching, though, this is a whole different level of vulnerability and responsibility. What surprised you most about holding space for those students that are finding you, that are watching you on social media, that are learning from you?
I feel like we all can pinpoint that uniqueness about us. And I think that's why there's so many of us that do this work and can teach the way we teach, because we're all different and unique. For me, it's more about advising and bringing it together, understanding like, yes, you are human. We need to have human experiences and the ability to be who we are and still have spirit on our sides, understanding that that's never going to go away. If you have a little hiccup in life where you got to deal with some things, you put that here first. One thing I've learned about the spirit world is that they want you to experience your human life. You cannot get submerged in your spirituality. You need to experience your life and bring it forward where you understand yourself on a level where you're able to blend that with your mediumship. I just love to help them integrate that and understand that you need to have your life as well as understand spirit, but know that those two come together. Your humanness comes first, your experiences come first, and that groundedness in you being able to live in this body. So, I mean, I'm sure a lot of us teach that very differently because of our experiences. And that's what makes each of us unique. That ability and just to have the students or whoever it is be attracted to our energy because we can vibe, right? And I think that's a signature. It's that energetic signature that we can vibe with. And whoever's meant to be with that teacher, that mentor, that medium, that psychic, it's because there's an energetic pull. So I listen to that even with my own friends. You pulled me in because you're amazing in the way you teach. I love the way you inspire others. I absolutely love that about you. The non-competitiveness, right? That's another
Yeah.
thing I try to throw out the window because it's just not healthy. It's the humanness and bringing that spirit and life together to understand that we can have both, but we need to live our lives, which is super important.
100%. You're doing mediumship, you're teaching, but you've also created something absolutely incredible. You have created this beautiful oracle card deck. This is huge. What made you decide to work with spirit to really birth that and bring it into the world?
So it was in the making for a very long time, and I was struggling with the title, right? I was like, okay, every single card represents something very specific for me, whether it's through my journey. So I said, what can I name this as far as it being a journey, but something that everybody can really connect with? And the Self-Discovery Oracle deck was just the right name for it because that's exactly what the deck is. Every card represents something that is a part of you and your journey, and the guidance that I received from spirit to put on each card to give the message to the person who's either reading for themselves or if they're wanting to use the deck to read to other people. So I'm very creative. I don't know, like if you're into astrology, my house of Sagittarius is packed with things. My
Okay.
creativity level is beyond something that I can't even explain because I have projects upon projects. It's like a light bulb goes off and spirit's like, well, it's time to finish that one. So I went in and I put it all together. I had been working on it for over 2 years. Everything came together in like a month. So it's like, oh, now I know where to get this and how to do this and where do I find this and how do I find somebody to print out the deck and how do I do this? And everything just kind of flowed in. And it's because I listened to spirit. I let that guidance come in and spirit was like, it's time now. And that's exactly what I did. And I just put it out there in the world for others to have that little guide there for them. It's one of my passion projects and I hope to come out with many more decks, but it was definitely something to help people discover themselves as well as get the guidance they need for their everyday experiences.
I've seen the cards on a TikTok that you did, and I was like, oh my God, they are stunning. They're absolutely stunning. Is there a card in the deck that feels especially close to you right now?
Yes, I would love to show you one card. My card that I put for me represents my energy and overall life story. It's number 42. It's a transformation card because I'm constantly transforming. I'm never in the same spot, whether it was yesterday or today. And for me, the butterfly wings are very, it just represents that metamorphosis of being able to go from the cocoon and blossom into this beautiful butterfly. I think I wanted to put a card like this in this deck as a reminder for other people to understand that we are constantly transforming. You are never going to be the same person that you were a week ago. We are always changing. That card represents me in that deck, as well as trying to draw in that energy for others to understand that transformation process in their lives.
That's so powerful, Erica. I mean, those cards are stunning. They really, really are. They're absolutely beautiful. Before we wrap, is there anything you're sitting with lately that you maybe haven't really had space to talk about in spirituality? Something that's maybe still unfolding, maybe not fully clear yet?
For me, I'm always constantly transforming and there's always something coming up. And that's the honest truth. I feel like I just want to give that message to people to think that you need to be fully 100% healed in order to be a psychic medium. And you need to be in this space of 100% positivity in order to do this work because I have done many readings and I have experienced many things where I've had like a complete breakdown, but spirit came through strong. It's not about you putting pressure on yourself to fit into this box of perfection. You are always going to be changing, shifting. Don't allow your vulnerabilities to be looked at as a weakness because that is your strength. Continue to utilize that energy and perspective to understand that you can do this work too if you want to. It's always a choice, but we all can do this. It's about understanding that you're constantly going through changes, so don't feel like you need to be perfect in order to do it. You be who you are and you show up as you are, and that is enough.
Spirit will work with you where you're at in your life, for sure. For someone who's listening, who's maybe still in their old life, they're not sure how to make that leap. What would you want them to hear today?
I would want them to hear to trust themselves, to trust the pull, and trust. That's something you're always going to hear me say in my videos to trust yourself more than anything. Sometimes it makes no sense why we're being pulled in certain directions, but we're not meant to really know in that moment. We're meant to just go with the flow. So I say to you to trust yourself, trust your feelings, and just allow yourself to jump into that without fear.
Trust is such a powerful word. I used to sit in a development circle for 7 years. Best thing I ever did for my personal development, spiritual development. And in the center, there was a little table and it had a red Himalayan salt lamp. And all the lights were off. It was at a spiritualist church. Around this Himalayan salt lamp were these stones that were hand painted, and they each had different words. And one of them was trust. So powerful that I had it tattooed. It's upside down, can't really see. And then the other stone was patience. I'm still working on that. But these are words that have so much depth and meaning. And the more that you lean into them, the more that you contemplate them, you'll find that there's such a richness and depth to them. They support you in your human life, but in the spiritual experiences that you're having with your own soul and with the world unseen. Erica, can you tell people what you have up and coming, where they can find you?
Sure. I do have some classes coming up. I love to teach mediumship. I have beginners, intermediate, and I also have an advanced class. Not too many spots filled, but they will come back around. Anyhow, I have that coming up. I try not to overwhelm myself, so I am teaching and I try to keep one thing at a time, but you will always find me with a new podcast episode every Friday. That's what I have going on right now.
But it's still a lot of work. Erica, it's been so amazing to have you on the show, to get to know you more, to have you share your voice with my listeners. It's been absolutely amazing. Thank you so much.
You're welcome. Thank you for having me.
The Connected Spirit isn't just a podcast, it's a remembering of who we are, a remembering of our connection to spirit, and a remembering that we are never walking this path alone. Mediumship isn't just about speaking with spirits. It's about deepening the connection to our own spirit, to one another, and to the energy that moves through everything. So as you leave this space, ask yourself, what part of this conversation stirred something within you? What connection is spirit inviting you to strengthen? If this episode spoke to you, please share it, leave a review, and connect with me on Instagram at Medium Courtney Dawson, or visit my website at mediumcourtneydawson.com. Your presence in this community matters, because connection isn't just about what we seek, it's what we are. Until next time, trust your spirit, trust the unseen world, and trust that you are always, always connected.